Alright you guys, welcome back to the channel. Got another awesome video today where we're going to be taking a look at 13 reasons why. I'm going to go into a little bit about the show, some of the very intense and graphic scenes and depictions of real life incidents that it portrays. And then we're going to address probably the biggest question that I've ever heard people ask, or the thing that people bring up the most about the show, which is whether or not the show needed to go to such lengths to show and portray these very dramatic and graphic scenes to the extent that it did. So, let's get started.
You're listening to Mental Health Topics with Rob.
I should probably first say that the video here will actually contain spoiler alerts. So if you haven't seen the show or you haven't finished watching all 4 seasons, which I highly recommend you do, feel free to go watch another video here on my channel if you're interested in more mental health educational content like this. So if you continue to watch this, it will be at your own risk. There will be spoilers, so just a heads up for that. So before we get into the actual big question, I just thought it would be interesting just to kind of give a quick perspective personally for how I feel about the show. And I love it. Very simply put, it's a phenomenal series. It tackles so many real life issues, and whether you believe it or not, these issues are very real and they happen to a lot of people, right? I think that a lot of people live in a kind of bubble where we kind of think that these things don't happen very often, that they're kind of exaggerated, or they're just kind of overdone for TV or production's sake. But these issues are real. And one of the things I realized as I started watching this series is it really addresses most, if not almost all, of the same issues that a show like Degrassi covered back in the day as well. Now, that was really a show I wasn't really watching in its prime, especially when it comes to the Next Generation. That was kind of when I first heard of it. Okay, so I actually had to just Google that just to make sure I wasn't confusing Star Trek The Next Generation with Degrassi. It was called The Next Generation. So anyway, that's basically where I kind of started watching, and that's kind of the era that I kind of am thinking of. But having also seen Next Class on Netflix as well, a continuation of many of those characters, it really addresses a lot of the same issues. I wouldn't necessarily say it always goes in the same direction as Degrassi did, but it does address a lot of the same issues, which, I mean, just to name a few off the top of my head, everything from bullying to physical and sexual assault to self-harm to eating disorders, to sexuality confusions, and just so many things. School shootings, even. The show really does cover it all, and it's so immense. There's just so much going on. The 4 seasons of the show, every season is jam-packed with action. All the characters, you know why they're there, you know what they're doing. You never feel like you don't understand a character in terms of what their motives are, what they're trying to do, how they feel about a certain event or person. The plots are really well explained, and the the narrative is very well directed, and the actors are all phenomenal. Incredible acting. All 4 seasons, all actors did a phenomenal job. And if you've seen the show, or if you're going to sit down and see the show, it's no surprise to imagine how these actors managed to pull this stuff off as well as they did, given the gravity and the immense emotion behind many of these traumatic and very intense scenes that they had to film. And it just really speaks to their credibility and to their talent and dedication to their craft as phenomenal actors, and I can't praise them enough for that. They sold the story, they sold the setting, and they all connected with each other. They connected very well. They were all kind of involved in the same plots. For some things, they got themselves into a lot of trouble, as you'll see in the later seasons. But they always, while going through their own hells, so to speak, they were always in it together. They were always working together, communicating, trying to figure out what the next move would be, how to get through a situation. And they always believed in each other, and they were all friends with each other. And I think that much is very much evident from the later seasons. And you're never stuck wondering what a character's doing there or what they're interested in. You always have a very good idea of what's going on. And I think that's a really good measure to speak of how good the story and how good the actors really were in their respective roles. Now, in terms of rating the seasons, obviously it makes most sense to watch them in order. If I was going to rate them in terms of my favorite to least favorite, I would say season 1, because it kicks everything off. It's the introduction to the plot, to the characters, and all of that. So naturally that kind of has to go first, because otherwise nothing after that will make sense. So for expediency's sake, season 1, followed by season 4, the last season, followed by season 2, and then season 3. Season 3, I think, was regarded by most people to be the weakest season, so I don't think I'm really kind of out of left field with that one. I think most people agree with that. So that's my quick rating. I'm not really going to go into much detail about why or what each season was really about, because there's plenty of other videos to really analyze the actual plot and what was going on and all that in each season. So that's just my quick rating for those wondering. But in terms of addressing the big question of whether or not the scenes needed to be shown, these traumatic, very intense scenes, I'm talking about the assault scenes, the suicide scene from Hannah at the end of season 1. I've heard that was pulled actually from Netflix. They actually pulled or re-edited that scene out of the final episode of season 1 for the actual suicide scene. I've heard that they took that out, or they edited it out somehow and kind of redid it. I haven't actually gone back to watch it again. I actually wanted to do that the other day and I forgot. I wanted to go back and rewatch that last episode. Just to see what they did with it, because I did see it with the original scene in it, so I'd be interested to see what they changed, if they did actually change that scene. So it was hard to watch, can't lie about that. But one of the things I love the most about the show, and it's a lot like Degrassi in this way as well, I really think that the show is so great because it goes for exactly what it's trying to go for. It doesn't try to be something it's not. It doesn't just try to be a sappy teen drama, high school kind of story, you know. It shows real world issues. Like I said, everything from assaults, school shootings, suicide, self-harm, mental illness, so many things, right, that we experience every day as high schoolers, as college students, as young adults, older adults, everyone in between, right? Anyone can be affected by these issues. and I've said that before on this channel previously in other videos, it's important to remember that these are not issues that are limited to young people or teenagers. This can happen to anyone. So it's important to keep that in mind. And that really helps kind of tie in the sense of identifying with that idea that this could happen to anyone. This could happen to yourself, to your friends, to your family, peers, co-workers, anyone. And it's really important to keep that in mind because, like I said, the show really does do a great job of being what it says it's going to be. I can't lie and say that the content sometimes isn't hard to watch, but at the same time, part of the big thing is understanding why they decided to show it with the intensity and being as graphic and descriptive as they did. And ultimately, that's the big reason why, no pun intended, for why I believe that these scenes did need to be shown with the traumatic impact of showing these scenes with the amount of detail and intensity and realism that they did. It's simply because people need to be aware that this is the reality. It is a TV show. These are actors, incredible actors, mind you, but it is a show. It is written, it is scripted, you know. It's not necessarily real life, but the important thing to remember is, again, these issues occur in real life, and they do impact real people. So, being able to portray that and put that out there for people, the whole world to see, is a really powerful thing. We can't forget that these are real incidents that happen to real people. And as dramatic, as impactful as some of these scenes were, it really makes you feel connected to the story, to the plot, because all these horrible things just keep happening to these poor kids who are just trying to be in high school, right? High school is hard enough as it is. And then you have things like a student committing suicide. Another student, I think in season 1, was in a really bad car accident or something. Maybe I think he died too. I forget. Season 2 is all about the trial of Bryce Walker, the big jock football player who was accused of sexually assaulting several students at the school, including Hannah Baker, who was the one who committed suicide at the end of season 1. So season 2 was pretty much just the trial for that. Season 3 follows the investigation into the mystery of what happened to Bryce Walker. I'm not going to give that one away. That's a surprise. You have to watch to find that one out. Something happens to Bryce Walker, and of course the gang has to work together to get through that situation. And in season 4, most of season 4 deals with the main character Clay's descent into mental illness. And if I'm honest, the reason that I rate this to be the second best season out of the 4, honestly, if I didn't have to account for the fact that if you didn't watch season 1 first, you would have no idea who these people are, and you wouldn't get to watch them grow stronger together as friends and as kind of a group in all these situations that they face over these 4 years. If I didn't have to account for that, but if I was speaking strictly about favorite season, it would be the 4th season, the last season. And that's really because it shows what I was most interested in ever since I started watching season 2. I was really hoping that they would dive into Clay's mental health, because, well, I'll give a quick spoiler here. At the beginning of season 2, with Hannah's trial just starting, he starts to have visions of her. He can see her, and he's like, she's in the room with him, kind of thing, and talking, and kind of trying to figure out, like, why are you here at your trial? Like, you know, what are you doing? And so it very quickly kind of goes to that kind of thing. And it's it's a little weird at first watching that. But like I said, ever since they started with that, showing her and stuff in these scenes and flashbacks and things in season 2, I was really interested in diving further into that and really trying to explore if this was schizophrenia or PTSD or some other mental disorder, delusional disorder, who knows, right? But I really wanted them to dive more into this because he had this traumatic thing happen to his best friend. You know, she killed herself, and it's a horrible thing, and he obviously isn't dealing with it very well. And they kind of got away from that a bit in season 3, but then season 4 hit, and the minute I saw the actor for his counselor, his therapist, it was what's his name? Gary Sinise. Gary Sinise. Phenomenal actor. And the minute I saw that in the trailer, I knew this was going to be exactly what I was looking for. You know, Clay is seeing a therapist, that means we're going to get to see up in here, which from a mental health standpoint, and as someone with mental health issues, was really what I've been waiting for the last 2 seasons. So I really, really love season 4. I think it wrapped up the show really well. There is a huge twist at the end that not a single person saw coming. I cried so much in season 4. It was horrendous. Like, I had to get a lifeboat and a life vest because I practically flooded my apartment. I was crying so much. It is a very tough show. You know, like I said, these scenes are impactful, they are memorable, they are dramatic, they're realistic, they're scary sometimes, and the immersion you feel with how the character feels very much is how you feel. If they're scared, you feel scared because they're scared. It's very, very powerful. But like I said, the main thing is the reason of whether or not they had to show these scenes in such a descriptive and impactful way is to make sure that people knew that this was real life, that these situations happen all the time to real people, and that people are really suffering because of that. And just to bring awareness to that, I think, and that's really powerful. That's a really, really good message to send in terms of mental health and in terms of abuse victims, all these sorts of things, right? So overall, I highly recommend the show. I think the show is a 10 out of 10 stars for me. It has really impacted the way I look at even shows like Degrassi. Even going back, if I went back to watch that, I think I would be a little bit more critical of it. Now I would be a little bit more aware of what's really going on, what's really impacting the characters and how things are impacting them and how they react to it. Like I said, the shows are very similar in many ways in terms of what they address. I mean, I think the only thing perhaps that 13 Reasons Why doesn't address or doesn't have in it in general that Degrassi probably does is probably something like teenage pregnancy. I don't remember any of the characters getting pregnant in this show. But every other issue, like I named, school shootings, suicide, self-harm, eating disorders, mental illness, abuse, harassment, you name it. It's all there. So, both are captivating. I recommend both of them, realistically. But in terms of 13 Reasons Why, it can be hard to watch. And if those sorts of scenes upset you, they do actually have trigger warnings ahead of the episode for some of the particularly disturbing, potentially disturbing scenes, so that you are aware of what is to come for that episode. So that's something they started with season 2 because they received so much backlash from, like I said, that suicide scene. A lot of people were on all over the place with this. But the biggest question I remember reading was, do they really need to show it like this? Did they have to show her killing herself? Did they have to show these abuse and assault scenes? The answer is yes. In my opinion, yes. Because it makes it more powerful. It makes it convey the big message at the end of the day that The show is saying exactly what it is showing. And it's showing that these are serious, real life issues that affect real people every day. And we need to take that into consideration. We need to remember that. And we need to pay attention to that. So that's my thought on 13 Reasons Why. So those are my thoughts on 13 Reasons Why. Hopefully you found my analysis to be interesting. And if you haven't seen the show, I definitely recommend you check it out if you're into that sort of scene. Like I said, bring the tissues. If you're anything like me, you'll cry your eyes out at some of these scenes. But the actors are so phenomenal. The story is so immersive. You just get hooked. What else can I say? It's a great show. So if you enjoyed this video, please like it. You can add any comments down below, what you thought about the show, how you looked at it. If there's any other show similar to this that I should check out. Always looking for recommendations to binge TV. And if you like other mental health educational videos, you can subscribe to my channel and check out some of my other videos I've done on BPD, bipolar disorder, the goals and viewpoints of therapy, medication, and many more subjects. So hopefully you found this interesting, and I'll see you next time on the channel.